So you found me where you left me, tired and barely dressed, waving one last long goodbye to my contemplative mornings and the me, myself and I. 'Cause I'm a father to these children, these chicks within my nest, their gaping mouths to feed. Such precious little bundles of ever-present need. Here in the longest, shortest time, I pine for the life I've left behind. My love knows no bounds, but any time that's mine, I cling to madly. But they forgive me and they give me love that's unsurpassed, and they often make me smile. Even though I haven't slept straight through the night in quite a while, people tell me every day, you walk up and tell me, when your kids grow up so fast, someday I'll realize. Even though I see it coming, it will come as a surprise. 'Cause these days go on forever, but these years are slipping through my hands. Here in the longest, shortest time, the steepest of hills I'll ever climb. But just when you think it never ends, it ends as good things tend to. We hear and love her madly, soak up his laughter now and then, hold each I love you, Daddy. These times will never come again. Someday they'll both be married. Someday they'll hardly call hands on. And someday I'll barely know them. Here in the longest, shortest time, the steepest of hills I'll ever climb. But just when you think it never ends,
Please pray with me. Just breathing into this time, in this space of gratitude, in this time of thanksgiving, recognizing the beauty of the divine that is in and through everything. It is on the mountains and the snow peaks that are beginning to form. It is in the cloud cover and the wind as it rustles leaves, which is that time of the year where it is dormant as the trees lay in wait for a new season, but steady and present. For that divine presence is in and through everything, as it is in me and each and every one of us. And I just know that this time together is sacred, just like I know that all those that gather, whether it be in mosque, synagogues, and communities throughout the world, out in nature, or even chilling at home, that divine essence resonates in everything. And I know it is here now. It is in this time, in this talk, as Reverend Jen is a conduit of that divine expression itself. I just breathe that in, and with great thanksgiving, I simply let this go. I allow this time to resonate where it needs to be in our hearts. And as we allow it, we say in one voice, and so it is. Our words of inspiration first is from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. There are two things parents should give their children: roots and wings. Roots to give them the bearing and a sense of belonging, but also wings to help free them from the constraints and prejudices and give them other ways to travel, or rather, to fly. And from the Dalai Lama, give the ones you love wings to fly, roots to come back, and reasons to stay. And from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, the spirit cannot be or become antagonistic toward us. It is always flowing into us and ever expressing itself through us. This self-expression of God is also the self-expression of man, for the two are one. The I am is both individual and universal. All individuality merges into universality. All forms are rooted in one common creative mind, and the Spirit of God is the Spirit of man.
This week we're going to take some time to explore the relationship between freedom and safety. And we're going to look at how childhood conditioning has set us up for what Einstein once called the most important decisions we make. So as we go through this theme this month of home and family and looking at all of this, we come to the idea of roots and wings. And we're going to look at the fact that as parents, those of us who have been in that role, that we deeply root our children to that family dynamic, to that belonging, to that connectedness, to that place of acceptance. And then we also instill in them the ability to make wise choices, whether they do or not later in life. But we instill in them that ability to make wise choices as they go forward and they fly and they become more free with what they choose to do. I also want to point out that for some of us in this room and for some of us listening to this in our online environment, perhaps that wasn't the experience of childhood for you. But that doesn't mean that we can't still go into our hearts in this place where we live and adopt these ideas and find ways to create those roots for ourselves and that safety net for ourselves and that place where we feel protected and accepted and belonging, and have instilled in us the ways that we want to choose to make the decisions that we are going to make in our lives. We still have the ability to do that. So it's not that we're at a loss and we're not broken and we don't need to be fixed if we didn't have that family of origin. So we want to make sure that I make that crystal clear. So one of the things that I found interesting about this whole idea is that many of us find safety in our home. I know when I'm home, I feel pretty good. I don't have to go out. I don't have to worry about what's going on outside. I don't have to worry about the weather. I don't have to worry about clearing off the driveway. Of course, I never have to worry about clearing off the driveway because I have an amazing neighbor who does that for me. And I have another neighbor who comes and clears all the walkways, so that's a wonderful thing for me. But when I'm home, I feel pretty safe. And yet, we still get to look at that idea of where we all, as a collective society, are today, of what transpired for us just a few years ago. Because just a few years ago, we went into this amazing experience called pandemic. And during that time, we got to stay home. In fact, some of us were kind of forced to stay home. And we didn't necessarily feel safe in our homes because there was a threat or a perceived threat that could come into the home, and we could still be harmed by it. So again, we've got all of these different ways to look at this idea and to look at what this means to us. And so what we want to pay attention to is, what does it mean to you to feel safe? What does it mean to you to feel protected? And in that place of where you feel safe and protected, do you feel that you have the right to show up authentically? Because that's the big piece, is to be able to show up as yourself. And we talk about this quite a bit in this philosophy of that idea of being accepted, embraced for who you are. That we talk about in our welcoming, that we welcome all people, all paths, all walks of life, all beliefs. We welcome all of them. And in this philosophy, I get very excited because I think that's where we need to be. I think that's where we need to take this world forward, is in that idea of acceptance. And then something crazy happens, and we all go out and we vote. And what happens is, on social media, I start to see that we're not quite as accepting as we might profess to be. And so what I do for myself is, when I see these comments and these, what do I want to call it? A little bit of finger pointing, a little bit of disgruntledness, a little bit of I don't agree, I don't approve, whatever it is. Whatever it is that's showing up on social media, I have my own perspective, I have my own opinion. But when I personally see that, I choose to go into that place of prayer, holding that space not only for the world to come together as one united being, as one United States, for those of us who live in the U.S., but I also go into prayer for that place of allowing me, moving me to that place of acceptance, to that place of embracing. I don't have to agree with the rest of the world. I don't have to agree with anyone. I don't need anyone's permission to be me. And that's the piece I want us to look at today also, because when we come into that place of wings, that ability to fly, that's when we get out there and we expose ourselves and we're seen for who we really are. And yes, whatever that work is that we need to do one-on-one to take us to that place, oh my gosh, we have so many wonderful opportunities to do that work. Jonas Salk gives us this quote: "Good parents give their children roots and wings. Roots to know where home is, and wings to fly away and exercise what's been taught them." As a parent, I find this an interesting quote, and I don't say that I failed, because what I gave my children was the ability to make their own decisions. And in that place of making their own decisions, they made choices. And there were sometimes consequences that weren't comfortable for them and weren't comfortable for me. But I did my best to allow that to take place. And again, we look at that idea of whatever your early years were about, whatever was instilled in you, whether you got it in school, you got it in your family of origin, you got it someplace else, whatever that was, it gave you that ability to look at what feels safe, what feels right in belonging, and then what can I do to go out and express myself and to move away limitation and to be free in my life. Too often we get caught, if you will, in that idea of, yeah, but you don't understand what my childhood was like. You have no idea what I went through. And I understand that. And I hold that space of compassion for those who felt harm and who felt judged and criticized. And still, each one of us is responsible for those stories and what we choose to do with them moving forward. Each one of us. And so if you're struggling in that space, if you're having challenges in that, reach out to someone who can help you, who can support you in that process. What we have today is we have access to so much information. We have healing, we have support, we have spiritual practices, we have all of these wonderful things that can give us what we need to heal whatever's been harming us from the past, and to help us support others who may need that same healing, and to move forward, and to truly express ourselves as we are choosing to do. In the words of Maya Angelou, the ache for home lies in all of us. The safe place where we can go as we are and not be questioned. So again, as I mentioned last week, what does home mean to you? Is it a physical place? Is it a place where you go, where your television sits and your recliner and your refrigerator and all those wonderful things, your bedroom and those things? Is that what you call home? Because for some people it is. It is a stationary place. And yet, for some of us, it lives within our heart. And we're carrying that place, that idea of home, with us everywhere we go. Everywhere we go, every place we are, we bring it with us. We choose to walk into a space like this sanctuary and feel a sense of belonging. And that becomes home as well. We go back to wherever we grew up. We go back to or travel to where other family is, and we call that home as well. And with Thanksgiving coming up, a lot of us are looking at that idea of home and support and love and that unconditional acceptance. And again, it isn't always what we picture it to be, but what can we bring to that, and how can we move through those times and that place to be in that experience of just love, just being in love. What I want to encourage you today is to be who you are and to live in that space of being and create that home space, that sense of belonging, that loving, that connection for yourself. Because from there, it just kind of feathers out and touches the rest of the planet. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, gives us this quote: "All our reactions to life are related to our spiritual convictions. We cannot escape this. Just as a child needs to have confidence in his parents, so we all need the same confidence in the power that is greater than we are." All of our reactions are related to our spiritual convictions. So what is it you believe? What is it you believe to be the truth for you? What is that knowing within you, that knowing within your heart of how life is? Do you have that knowing, that sense that there is a power that supports each and every one of us, that travels with us, that accompanies us in all things? Do you have that knowing? And if you don't, what can you do to get to that place, to get to that support for yourself? You see, our spiritual convictions have their genesis in our childhood upbringing. Whatever transpired in your world when you were a child, you have brought much of that forward. If it was restrictive, you brought that forward. If it was uncomfortable, if it was challenging, if there was conflict, we bring that forward. If it was loving and perfect and supportive and warm and unconditional, then you bring that forward. And so we want to take time We don't have to delve into the nitty-gritty and go back in time, but just take time to reflect on it. Where are we today? How did we get here? What have we brought with us? Because what we brought with us, we're sharing with everyone else. Truthfully, we can look back at our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents, and we can see a pattern. We can see an energy. We can see some traditional ideas that have come forth year after year, generation after generation. And if you're no longer comfortable with those, if those do not serve you, then create something new. Create that home that for you gives you that unconditional love, that sense of belonging, that can empower you to tackle life when you need to. You know, it's interesting, as I was researching for this talk this week, there was a reference to look at the animal kingdom, which I found so curious. In the animal kingdom, a birth takes place, and sometimes within days, maybe weeks, but not a very long time, that new being is pretty much put out there on its own. It gets to go out and kind of make its own way. It gets to go out there and kind of figure it out. It has such a short time frame to be under that parenting idea, under that parenting umbrella, if you will. This tells us how unique we are, doesn't it? Because as humans, we need years and years and years and years sometimes. Someone mentioned to me that they have an adult son, and he can't quite figure out life, and he's having all this problem, and he's having all that problem, and on and on and on. And I said, 32 and 35. And the individual looked at me and said, what? And I said, that's how long it took. One of them was 32, one of them was 35. When all of a sudden it was like, they got it. Oh my gosh, I don't have to call mom every day. I'm not borrowing money anymore. I'm not making a wreck of my life. I figured out what I want. I can go forward. That's how long it takes for some of us. And just because I had sons, I am not pointing at the masculine energy out there. Do not misunderstand me. My only experience is with sons, so that's all I can say. But as human beings, it takes us years, and then we get to this place of adulthood where we're showing up and we're interacting in group dynamics. We're becoming part of community. We're trying to be part of someone else's move into relationship, and something isn't working, and we can't figure out why, and it's because we're holding on to some idea or some type of training that didn't serve us then and it doesn't serve us now. And thank goodness we have this philosophy, because Ernest Holmes just teaches us, so change your thinking. Change your thinking and change your life. I always used to love that when I first came into this philosophy, and I kept thinking, dang, that sounds so simple. And he has no idea what a wreck my life is right now. And it's hard to change your thinking, especially if you are changing your thinking in the midst of the dynamics of relationship that is kind of chaotic and challenging to begin with. You know, I know I talk about marriages, mine specifically, and I had a few, but that's not the point. But I was married for a time, and we separated from time to time. And we would separate, and for a while, he was amazing. He was doing amazing things, and I was doing amazing things, and then we put it all back together, and we were right back to the old patterns. So it's just awareness. It's just our desire to be aware of what's going on and to choose what we want to create, and then to find the ways to choose that and make it happen. I found some information from a woman by the name of Penelope Maver. She is the founder of an organization called Earth Converse, and she is a leadership coach. And she gives us this quote: "Our roots are our connection with ourselves, others, and our place in the world. Cultivating them gives us a sense of identity, of belonging, of coming home to who we are. These are the foundations which keep us grounded, connected, and contributing. They are the relationships with those we love and the complex and supportive fabric which nourish our inner core. How beautiful is that? It is our roots. It is my ability to feel rooted in this space and this place that allows me to show up and be a contributing presence on planet Earth. So what are my roots? What am I looking at? She also goes on to say that when we look at the idea of our wings are the ability for us to stretch out far and wide. Our wings are what expand our horizons and help us to seek out new territories and new adventures. With them, we express our innate curiosity, our sense of adventure, our need for exploration, and we discover new ideas and opportunities. This allows us to develop our own independence. So how beautiful is that? When you go through this week, the next few days, consider roots, consider wings. How am I rooted? How am I grounded? What is that space and that place that I'm creating for me to show up where I belong and I'm loved and I'm cared for? And then where is it that I go in and choose the wings in my life where I can go out and possibly take a risk, possibly do something that maybe I wouldn't have done otherwise if I didn't feel safe, if I didn't feel guided, if I didn't feel protected. The process is simple when it works. It doesn't always work. But what each one of us can do and what we can do for this planet is to know that. And to recognize that when we're interacting with someone who seems to be speaking something interesting and we can't quite grasp the thought process and we can't quite connect with what they're talking about and we're not sure we feel confident in what they're saying and we feel like we're disagreeing, but we can look at that and we can just allow that space for that person to express freely. I don't have to correct you. I don't have to change who you are and how you think. I don't have to do any of those things for us to stay connected and part of community. I saw a post on Facebook the other day that was asking, how often do you correct someone's language or spelling when they post something on Facebook and they spell a word wrong? And at first I thought, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then I went to that place of, well, but you know, I was a trainer for almost 30 years. I was really good at correcting the people I trained to say it this way, to do it that way. And sometimes I'll ask the question, well, what if you said that differently? I'm doing the same darn thing. When we look at the idea that we welcome all people here into this home space that we are in, when we welcome all people, all paths, that means that I'm not going to walk up to you and say, why are you wearing that? What did you do to your hair? Did I just hear you say, no, we're going to just be in that space of openness and belonging. I used to train my students that if you're talking to someone on the phone, because we did a lot of customer service stuff, if you're talking to someone on the phone and they are misbehaving, do not attempt to correct them. If they didn't get that instilled in them by the time they were 8 years old, the service rep on the phone with them today is not going to make a difference. Knock it off. And I had this whole big spiel. I did this wonderful training, and I had one of my reps came up to me later and said, well, so what do I do when someone is really wrong? And I said, excuse me? And he said, well, I'm talking to a customer on the phone, and he's wrong. How do you want me to correct him? And I said, and there's the key. I don't. We're here for service. We're here to serve, which is where we are. We're here to serve one another. We are not here to grow, to correct, to punish, to adjust. That's not our purpose. That's not who we are. So let's take some time and look at that this week and just reflect on what that can mean to us. And I'm here to tell you, you'll have more ease. You'll experience more grace. You will experience deeper love and appreciation for everyone you come in contact with, because you didn't have to go into that mindset that said, I need to fix you. I need to correct you. I need to change you. Dawn shared this quote earlier, and I so appreciate it, from the Dalai Lama, that says, "Give the ones you love wings to fly, roots to come back, and reasons to stay." We can do something so simple this week by just reflecting on the relationships in our life and get a real clear picture of what we're doing and what we need to adjust. We don't have to go back to childhood. We don't have to go back and figure that out. We don't have to talk to mom and dad and tell them what they did wrong or how they hurt us. What we can do is we can start from right here, right now, in this space, and give the ones we love wings to fly. We can give them that sense of belonging, that sense of connectedness, and the roots to come back, and the reasons to stay in our lives, to stay in our hearts. My two amazing sons are as different as night and day. And I have discovered that the time I spend with them is more valuable, more creative, and more rich if I do it separately. Because when they're in the same room together, there's conflict. And then I become mediator, and I turn back into mom, and they turn back into teenagers, and it's ugly. It's just ugly. But if I go and spend time with this one, I can be on the same plane as he is, and we have this great connection and this deep love, and it's beautiful. And I can do that with my other son as well, and it's just amazing. So consider that, because again, with Thanksgiving coming up, and some of us think we got to put everybody in the same room at the same table, and we're going to sit next to each other, and maybe that's not the connection we want for now. Maybe that's not what best serves us. Maybe that's not the place we want to be. Maybe it is. Again, your choice. There are so many ways for us to give to one another. And it all starts with that beautiful, beautiful word, love. Dr. Ernest Holmes also gives us this quote. I believe this is from him. It was in The Science of Mind. Oh, no, this is from him. This is from the Living the Science of Mind. Many of you are aware of that book by Holmes. And he says, we are all carrying the negative experiences of our past into the future merely because we have not disconnected them from our minds. If we are creating a negative future, it is because we have not changed our thought about it. I just want to put this out there for each of us this week. We can call it homework, we can call it due diligence, we can call it spiritual practice, whatever you choose, to go forward from here and pay attention to any negativity, to any idea, any limiting thought that is actually attached to something way back here, and it doesn't belong here anymore. We can choose to adjust our thinking, to disconnect. The picture I got in my head when I read that, we haven't disconnected them from our minds. I could see these little threads coming out from my head that go back into the past, and just taking a scissors and just cutting them free, and just allowing myself to create new thoughts, new ideas. I am not just like my parents. I had a lot of influence from them. Some of it showed up in me just as I am, and some of it I became who I am in spite of that, because I wasn't going to be that way. So it just, again, we were always making choices. We were always evolving. And the good news for me in my life was my parents allowed. They allowed me to be who I was. They cheered me on. They encouraged me. There were a lot of times they didn't agree with me, and they just were wise enough to know that those were things we probably shouldn't talk about. And so we didn't. So as you move out of this space and this place today and you go forward this week, take a couple deep breaths. Consider what past beliefs are holding you back. Consider what you need to develop that beautiful space and place in your being, in your heart, called home. And consider what it would be to be rooted in what you choose and how you choose to belong and to have those wings to allow yourself to fly and to experience life. Please join me in prayer. As we breathe into this space, into this moment, into this time right here, right now, and we allow our lungs to fill with that oxygen and energy, may we know right here in this moment, in this place, that we are breathing in the breath of God. We are sharing that breath. That when we take time for the silence and we just allow ourselves to feel that beat of our heart, we are also feeling the beat of the heart of Spirit Divine, of all life. How beautiful this is, and what it teaches us and what it tells us is that we are accompanied, we are connected, we are one, we are united with this power, this being. And because of this, it has made a home within us. Oh, how perfect is that? How beautiful is that? That I live in the home of God and God lives in the home that is me. And this is the truth for each and every one of us. And so today and every day we move forward knowing that we are divinely connected, that God is guiding us in all things, and that when we have those times, those situations, those challenges that cause us to struggle or cause us to break down or feel alone, that we can tune into that within ourselves. And if that doesn't feel like enough for us right now, we can reach out and take the hand of another and find that support, find that love, find that connection. I know that all people everywhere are blessed by God. We are all creations of the divine, and the divine lives within each and every one of us. And as we move forward, creating the life that we choose and celebrating all that we are and all that we can be, we do so knowing we are blessed. The divine right action is happening in our life for each and every one of us. It's good, it's perfect, and it's all God. And so right here in this moment, we just breathe that in. We turn these words over to the law of mind, knowing that Spirit has already heard what's on our hearts, already responded in the yes, the affirmative. And all we need to do in this moment is simply let it go and let it be, as we say together, and so it is.
Last night I sat with my demons, sipping tea in the parlor downstairs. Well, I let them all stay until they each had their say, then dismissed them politely with prayers. Well, a partner like you is good reason to hold court with these phantoms within, as they run about, casting shadows of doubt on the life we're about to begin. No one knows better than me that I'm not always easy to love. Yeah, but you hold my hand, you do the best that you can, and as long as we keep showing up, the best that we can is good enough. 'Cause what's left to feel after Cupid stops shooting you straight through the heart? Love becomes real when the cruel hands of time come to tear us apart. Last night you sat with your demons and you swore you saw more around the bend. No, the path ain't too clear. Still, I'm so grateful, my dear, to be walking beside my best friend. Well, no one knows better than me that I'm not always easy to love. Yeah, but you hold my hand. You do the best that you can. And the best that we can is good enough. Yeah, you hold my hand. You do the best that you can. And as long as we keep showing up, the best that you can, the best that I can, the best that we can.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.